Hello and welcome to the Rugby League Hub podcast. It's a weekly podcast in which we discuss the goings-on from the Rugby League world. I'm joined in the studio today by Ross Williams. How are we, Ross?
How are you doing, Andrew? How are you
doing? We've got a bit of a different show today, more of a laid-back approach to it. Got our own awards ceremony.
I'm very excited.
The most coveted and prestigious awards in the Rugby League world.
The inaugural Rugby League Hub podcast awards.
I know there's many a player sat at home eagerly anticipating the results of this and
it's a highlight of the year.
Wondering are they going to get one of our trophies?
Wait, trophies? Do we need to get trophies?
The ad revenue from the YouTube doesn't quite cover the trophies yet, so
we'll work on it.
Figurative trophy.
2018, watch your space.
We'll start off today, firstly with some highlights, some headlines from the world. The new International Rugby League rankings have come out this week. Obviously, Australia's still top. New Zealand still remain in second place. Ross, what do we make of that one?
I don't think the people put these rankings together actually watch the World Cup, which is a bit of an issue. But it depends how much stock you actually put in these rankings. I mean, it doesn't really affect realistically the top kind of 4 to 6 clubs. I know the rankings can have an impact on like qualification for lower down clubs potentially for competitions going forward, which is an issue. The fact New Zealand are second, I mean, there's been quite a lot of media attention about the fact that they're obviously above England. In fairness, England haven't beaten them. We haven't beaten them in a couple of years, so you can't really say so much about that. You can argue for Tonga. To be fair, Tonga are in 4th. They have beaten New Zealand, and they sit behind them, so maybe it's certainly something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I know a lot of the argument sort of thing is due to New Zealand losing, or losing to Fiji, and then the Scotland result a couple of years ago as well. That one's been brought up quite a lot, but yeah. I think overall it's probably still fair, as you mentioned, the whole England not beating them thing. I'd say I'd probably still sit with New Zealand in second. One that surprised me personally was Papua New Guinea coming in at 10th. That on its own isn't maybe surprising, but the fact that Scotland and France appear above Papua New Guinea, what do we make of that one?
Yeah, that one is a bit strange, and that's kind of ties into what I'm saying about did they watch the World Cup, because Papua New Guinea looked head and shoulders above both Scotland and France for me. Hopefully there is going to be some games next year where they can kind of remedy that, and it'd be very obvious in a standalone game if Papua New Guinea can get some good wins together that they obviously are better than just a 10th place team. I think Papua New Guinea, if they'd have been placed in this standings in 6th or 7th, now would have really battered Ireland. That wouldn't have been too much of a surprise. So I'd like to see that change, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that one and probably the Lebanon one for me was a bit of a standout pick-in for me. I think Scotland didn't really show, or definitely didn't show, that they was, I think they was 7th place. And then France in 8th place is a bit more suitable for them, but still 12 Lebanon and Papua New Guinea both behind France for me was wrong.
Yeah, I don't know how much to look into it kind of historically. Like I say, Scotland have had a good couple of tournaments before this one. They got the draw against New Zealand and things like that, and they have performed pretty well. And in fairness, they were pretty depleted in this World Cup. Obviously, there was the issues with Danny Brough and what have you. And they won Samoa very close, didn't they? So, it's a little bit strange, but I don't think it's something we should be too hung up on, really, the rankings.
No, I think there's bigger problems
There is.
in the world of International Rugby League. But we'll stick in France for this one. It's been announced that Toronto Wolfpack are to play Toulouse at the Magic Weekend. What are the thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I mean, news kind of broke last night, I think. It's kind of come out of left field a little bit, that one. Wouldn't be the first time we've had 7 games at a Magic Weekend before, so that's not an issue as such. But Toronto versus Toulouse, how much that actually adds to the Magic Weekend in Newcastle, I'm not too sure. It'd be interesting, don't get me wrong, for obviously the majority of Super League fans will have not seen the Toronto Wolfpack play, or indeed Toulouse. So it adds a little bit of intrigue, I think, but I'm not sure it's going to add anything to the ticket sales or anything like that, to be honest. I think I saw something just this morning, actually, saying rather than Toronto to lose and have this, they've clearly been favoured by the RFL, why not have a League One game? You could have Newcastle, which, believe it or not, makes sense to have Newcastle playing at the Magic Weekend at St James's Park, surely. Have them play Bradford Bulls. They're in League One. Bradford are going to bring, even in their dire straits, they will bring 1,000, 2,000 fans They're going to add to that gate at St James's Park. Newcastle will bring a few hundred, but and obviously to get that club, that's the club that needs a boost on that big stage. That'd be massive. It just seems a little bit of a PR stunt to get Toronto to lose in the public eye, probably on Sky Sports. Yeah, I'm not sure I kind of agree with it.
Yeah, I think the words PR stunt have been tossed around quite a lot about this. And as you mentioned then, I think the Newcastle Bradford idea would be a good one. I think it's sort of the issue of looking after your own before expanding.
It's been an issue for the last 10 years, isn't it? Yeah.
Around for me, I think, we've watched Bradford go from title winning to League One through not necessarily the fault of purely the RFL in any way, but I think not allowing this to happen, but watching this happen and still trying to expand to the likes of Canada and New York, I think it's sort of, just keep it a bit more local for now. And is it really that big of a stunt, like you said? Are people really that bothered about seeing Toronto versus Toulouse?
I don't know. It's a big coup. I think it's a big coup for those two clubs.
Yeah.
The fact they're going to most likely, we're assuming this, it's early days. I don't think it has actually been officially announced by the RFL yet, but there's enough whispers going around that's going to happen. I'm assuming it's going to be on Sky. So that's the market they want to have in England for sure. They want to show these two clubs off, and I'm okay with that. I want to see the Championship on Sky, but if we're going to let these two clubs be on Sky, I want to see other games on there as well. If they're going to have more games than just the Summer Bash on Sky as well as this, then I'm all for it. But I don't really like the preferential treatment. I can't imagine the likes of Leigh, Featherstone, Halifax are too happy with this, to be honest.
No, especially not Leigh. I think after just coming down, I think they'd expect a bit more. But as you said, if it leads to more games on Sky, do you think it could then be the issue of Toronto being the club on all the time?
I think that's exactly what would happen, to be honest. But it's a compromise, isn't it? I think that's exactly what they do. I think if they had a Championship game every week, then Toronto will be on at least once every fortnight.
Yeah.
But is that better than what we've got now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as much as it's not ideal, it's still coverage. It's still coverage for the game. You still get your teams on there. So, yeah, even that I'd be all for.
Yeah, you take what you can get in this climate. We'll move to the awards now. We haven't quite come up with a funky name for our awards yet. So we'll just go with the Rugby League Hub Awards.
I think that's all it needs. I think that's all it needs.
Everyone knows what they are now, We don't need any introduction. We'll kick it off with the Try of the Year. And I'll let you take off on this one. What's your selection for it?
My Try of the Year is it was scored by a Castleford winger.
What a surprise.
There we go. All right. So, let's hear yours in a minute. It was scored by a Castleford winger who was not called Greg, which is something. Considering they must have had 50, 60 between them, Greg Eden and Greg Minikin.
Yeah.
But this one it was a Saturday evening, sorry. It was when we played Catalan away. It was a mental game. Cass found themselves behind by a few scores going into the last 15 minutes, and Cass had 2 yellow cards during the second half, I believe. And then Luke Gale got a really random yellow card right at the end, and no one knew it happened. But regardless, the game-winning try came from Jai Hitchcock's on the left edge, and how he got this ball down, if you've not seen the try, do find it on YouTube. Jai Hitchcock's versus Catalans 2017. How he got the ball down he was basically vertical. His head was he'd have been doing a headstand if he was on the ground. He gets the ball down in the most remarkable circumstances, and just a freakish display of athleticism. So I give my award to Jai.
Yeah, it's easy to pick a athletic finish from a Castleford winger, but I think the one try that beats every other this season, apparently not according to the Betfred Super League, you give it to Ben Jones-Bishop, I think, for his try. But for me, it's Tommy Makinson's try at the Magic Weekend. I think, it says it all when you watch the try. I think it was 90 metres, pushes one or two off in a tackle, races away, ends up crawling over the line after a last-ditch tackle from Danny Houghton. But I think, for me, that just showed what a special player he is, and I think he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. But I think
Wayne
today,
Bent doesn't know who he is, so that's interesting.
But I think today, I think he's a clear winner for this award. Obviously, supporting Castleford, you're going to say Jai was better, but for me...
Is what it is, isn't it? Is what it is.
Tommy Makinson wins that one for me. We'll go to game or moment of the year now. And I'll kick this one off. And I'll say, in recent years, this probably wouldn't have been my moment of the year. I think it's something Saints fans become used to over the years. I think, everyone knows we're famous for late comebacks, never right off the Saints and all that. But in recent years, it's been right off the Saints. We've had one or two, but a lot of fans in that stadium that night were going, we've been outplayed here. Robert Louis has absolutely played us off the park, and then with about 8 minutes to go, we picked up one try, picked up another. I think Reagan Grace in the corner, we did some 360 on the winger, and the winger was down the other end of the Lantry Park.
A totally wicked stadium. Just put that.
All right, don't have to rub it in. Come on, we can still go with the old name. But then in the last seconds, really, when Robert Louis had an absolute brain explosion and chipped it over the top with 5 seconds to go, and it got to Matty Smith. And all season I've been like, not the biggest fan of him. As soon as that ball went over, he was the best number 7 in the league for me. And I think just turning it around in that short space of time, really, I think probably set the tone for our season, really, and allowed us to go on the run we did after that. So that gets my vote for the moment.
Fair enough. I'm going to give a bit of an honourable mention for mine in terms of a moment of the year. I think one of the moments of 2017 Rugby League absolutely has to be that Tongan win over New Zealand. You can't not mention that. Just the colour, the crowd, the atmosphere, the way it went in the second half, just absolutely unbelievable. So definitely an honourable mention there. In terms of a game of the year, I'll probably go for the famous Saints comeback that never was. Down. I have to. I think, in all honesty, the semi-final down the lane in Castleford we're talking one of the greatest Super League games there's ever been. I think even you can agree with that.
Yeah, it still hurts, but
yeah, it's going to hurt. It had to hurt one of us, didn't it?
As a neutral, it was.
I almost wish I had been a neutral watching that game just to kind of appreciate. We probably can't appreciate how great that game was because it was so just agonising. But as a neutral, that must have been absolutely incredible. And the feedback you got after the game when you go on Twitter or anything was just like, that was one of the greatest games I've ever seen. Just in terms of a game that had absolutely everything. You can't really look past Cass Saints in the semi-final. First ever Golden Point semi-final, I believe. Gale knocking over the drop goal. Just an incredible moment. Just a really incredible moment, and it's going to be tough to top in 2018 a moment like that.
Yeah, it's hard to talk positively of that game, but if you're going to have an advert for the game, I think that's the one, arguably, that you choose. You mentioned the Tongan one. That is probably another one of the greatest adverts for the game, but I think that game, as you said, it had everything in. Like, just watching it, it's just blew your mind.
How much do you hate Ryan Morgan, by the way?
Hate's a strong word, I think. Would we be where he was in the season if it wasn't for his tries and assists? Probably, yeah. I think he might be up there for my signing of the season. But I think that moment just... anything I said about you there, Ryan, I'm very sorry. I imagine there'd be a few choice words said at that moment.
I could have kissed him. What was he thinking?
Oh, absolutely. We spoke about brain snaps from Robert Louis, but that's
right up there.
Another level. That
0-0, she just scored the try as well.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And probably wasn't one of the better performances, but we move on to our next category, which is the individual performance of the year. Going to one individual for a game, whether he won the game or just spurred his side on. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think we're both going to agree on this one, and it's one that hurts me just as much as the last one hurt you. But it's Danny Maguire. It's Danny Maguire in the grand final, and obviously it's pretty tough to take as a Cast fan, that grand final. But the way we performed and the way Leeds performed, and the main reason behind the way Leeds performed was Danny Mack. he was outstanding, wasn't he? He just played. He played like he was 10 years younger. He was just that maverick halfback, which is just ripped up Super League for so long, and he just rolled back the years and just. I've never seen a player look more composed in a final. I don't think.
Yeah, and you mentioned it for the last one. You said watching as a neutral. Obviously, I was a neutral for that final, and I could take the step back and really appreciate how good a performance that was. And sometimes, you know, you can play the best you've ever played in a final, but sometimes you just got to lie down and accept that one player is on the top of his game that day. And so late into his career, it was probably a bit of a surprise how good he was. I think he still got that quality, but to play the way he did.
And it wasn't so much what he did necessarily with the ball in hand as much as he was great. It was his game management. I mean, as much as we didn't like to think so as fans and as people involved with Castleford, it's just we still believe the game was on with 10 minutes to go. Because you just do, you've got to live in hope. But realistically, watching the game back, he killed that game 10 seconds before half-time. The drop goal to make it 7-0 absolutely just killed that grand final, and it's just such a smart play. And there's not that many players in Super League that would have come up with that play, and I think we're going to go on to it. Just what a coup for KR he's going to be next year.
Yeah, obviously coming up, he's got all the experience, he's got all the brains, he thinks rugby, and it really showed in that final. I think if Hull KR are going to stay up next season, or even potentially, look to do anything, I think he's obviously the main man for them. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge signing for them. I think probably Peacock at Hull KR probably had a lot to do with it. But,
I'd imagine so. Yeah.
Obviously, to have him on board is something special for a side coming up from the Championship for me.
Yeah, you can't really. You can buy experience, but it's just. Yeah, I mean, what's he done? 15 years in Super League now, pretty much, and all at the very, very highest level. Not all at one club, I know, but just you can't really put a price on that. No,
you look at everyone else who's available, and arguably there's only Rob Burrow who's of the similar stature to him. Obviously retired now, but there's no one else in the game who you could get that would bring that level of leadership. And in that final, as you said, he just calmed everything down. I think. Yeah,
I think it's more of a changing room thing than it is an on the park thing. It's just that kind of. He can just settle you down. You know what I mean? He's just such a level-headed guy. Even in interviews, he just seems level-headed and composed. He always has done. Annoyingly so, really, as an opposition fan. But he's going to be a massive coup for KR, and I think he's a deserved winner of our individual performance award.
Yeah, and could be up for the Sign in the Season award next year, maybe.
Possibly so.
But for this year, I'll kick this one off and whisper the words Matt Parcell. The Leeds hooker, I think, after they lost Seguiaro last year, a lot of people looked this year and went, where's the strike from?
Yeah.
There's a few young players in there, but Parcell arrived and not many people knew about him. I'd go to games and people are like, oh, do you know who this guy is? And I'd say, yeah, seen him knocking around in the NRL, never really quite got his chance as the starting hooker, and he got it this year, and I think he took it by absolute storm. I think it's 15 tries or something in the end, and it was a real strike player for them. I think over the years in Super League, I think James Roby's probably been the best hooker in the last few years, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And there's not many games I've gone to and thought he's in for a run in here. I think Mickey Mack's probably come close, but that's a physical side of it, I think, which Roby can deal with more. I think Parcell, it's just pure speed, and you can't defend against that. Sometimes you can set up all the tactics you want in the world, but I think Parcell is probably the only hooker in recent years that I thought, he could run Roby round today, so he gets my vote.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with Parcell, to be honest. If circumstances had gone a different way, I think you'd have been foolish not to mention Zach Hardacre in there. I mean, he 100%. I know it was a loan signing, but he was signed mid-season properly. If things had gone a different way and he'd have played a part in that grand final, things could have been different. And then if he wins the grand final or helps Cass win that grand final, then I think he's a shoo-in for it. But that things don't play out that way, and in which case Matt Parcell you can't really argue with. I don't think. Like I said, they needed, when you looked at that lead side at the beginning of this year, obviously they needed a response. They needed a massive response. Or McDermott's job was probably on the line. A lot of people were probably on the line, to be honest, after what they did the year before. And Yeah, it didn't look like they'd really recruited well enough. You asked a few people and they were like, "Oh, Leeds going to be back in the top 4, back in the top 2," and they're like, "I'm not too sure, not too sure based on what they've signed." And then Parcell was the one who, like you say, wasn't really well known over here at all. Kind of came through the woodwork a little bit, and he's just a very classy player. I find him a really classy hooker to watch, and I just for Leeds' sake, especially with they're in a bit of a transition period now. I think with Maguire leaving, obviously Burrow going, bringing the new halfbacks in, they're bringing together a whole new spine to that team, really, aren't they? So I think if they're going to continue their success, I think Parcell's going to have to be a big part of that. He's going to have to stick around for a little while.
Yeah, I think Parcell probably the player most likely to stay. I think there's not much talk of him going back to Australia. I think he looked happy there last year. I think some honourable mentions from my part would have to go to Ryan Morgan, Luke Douglas, and number one, I think very close to missing out is Zeb Taylor for me. I think swapping him for a young, strong English second rower in Joe Greenwood was absolute brilliant work by our scouting network. I think bringing in the 36-year-old on a 1-year contract was brilliant. I think many a time last season he played brilliantly. So I think he's very close for me to getting that award, but I think Parcell just edges it out. I think both strike plays for the team last year. We'll move on to Young Player of the Year. Oliver Gildart got the Super League award officially on the night. What do we make of that?
I can't argue too much. with that. I think Gildart had a very good season. But I think it was kind of a bit of a toss. There was no clear winner this year. I think in recent years there has kind of been a much more clear winner, and this time it was Gildart, Morgan Knowles, Regan Grace in there. There's Marshall, Gildart's teammate. I know in one of the shortlists I read we saw Jack Walker was in there as well. Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with that one. I don't think he's done enough, to be honest. He's only played 12 games?
12 games, I think.
12 games for Leeds. I mean, if he puts a full season under his belt, he's still going to be eligible next year. There you go. But I think it's been a good year for young players in Super League, but there's been no real standout. I think there's just been a lot of very good players, which bodes well. Bodes well for the future for sure. Young Player of the Year, I believe it's for under 23s.
Yeah, I'll back you on that one.
Yeah, I believe it's under 23s. We'll call it under 23s anyway. There's a bunch of names. I mean, from a Castle perspective, I could mention Greg Minikin, I suppose. He had a very good season. There's a bunch around the league. I think Gildart, you can't really argue too much with that. I'd be happy for Gildart to have the award, but there's no real standout this year for me. Yeah,
if you strip the Wigan performances back and really look at them, I think Gildart provided some killer moments. Really, I think he scored against us in the derby, I believe, and I think he did. He took the number 4 shirt and he made it his own.
Yeah,
I think he proved a lot of people that he was ready to take on such an important role at such an important club. I think Morgan Knowles, biased you may call me, I think he probably run him the closest, but it's that underappreciated sort of second row loose forward role he plays. I think if you compare him to the other loose forwards in the league, such as Sean O'Loughlin, I think obviously he's nowhere near that level. But it's very early in his career. I think for someone of 20, 21 years of age to play near enough 30, 40 games a season, I think that takes a spectacular effort, but I wouldn't necessarily go against Gildart for the title of that one.
Yeah, I think for this year, for the Young Player of the Year, I think it's a real shame, because I think even before the season started, it was really set up for one player to take it. It was set up for Tom Johnson, and it's a real shame he had his injury, because the way Wakefield played this year, he would have scored an absolute truckload of tries. I think he'd have absolutely run away with the Young Player of the Year, to be honest.
And
it's a real shame by Johnson.
Mention Wakefield there. We'll move on to Coach of the Year now. And my choice for that is going to be Chris Chester. I think doing what he did with that Wakefield side, I think no one predicted that.
No.
I think they showed...
My dad did, actually. I just throw that out there. My dad claimed Wakefield and Salford actually do really well last year.
Well done, Barry.
I didn't believe him, but there you go.
Get him on.
I'll get him on.
No, but I think they showed signs last year, as you mentioned. Tom Johnson, obviously, I believe he got Young Player of the Year last year, but not many people thought they could kick on. But the way you got, especially the likes of Liam Finn, and Scott Griggs firing again, I think Liam Finn at times was probably one of the form halfbacks in the league, and I think the way he turned that team around and he made them challengers for a bit, I think that was spectacular for me. I think he fully deserves the accolades. I think obviously Darryl Powell has done an amazing job, but I think if you compare the two sides, I think Wakefield just edge it for me and Chris Chester just edges it.
Fair enough. I say you can mention Chester for sure. Webster at Salford as well, to a point. For 2/3 of the season, Salford looks the real article, to be honest. And then I'm not entirely sure what happened. For me, for Salford, it was the Challenge Cup game with Wigan. I count that as their turning point. It looked Wigan were there for the taking that day, and Salford just couldn't quite get over the line. They couldn't find that killer edge, and that seemed to really knock them. That loss to Wigan, and after that, they just completely went off the rails. And I don't think you can really give a coach of the year to someone who can allow a side to do that. Really, for me, it would be Powell, to be honest, because
you're a Cass fan.
There we go. But regardless, as much as you say about the team, he's put the team that he has and compared to Wakefield, that's fair enough. But you look at where he signed those players from.
Yeah.
There was Hardacre, yes. Hardacre from Leeds, fair enough. That is the one kind of elite calibre player he signed from a top club. That's it. If you look at that, the likes of Gale, I'm sure I'll mention later, signing from Bradford when they were getting relegated, Mike McMeekan, players like this who've come into England reckoning this year, signed from London. Last year we're talking Dennis Olmona, again, London. Greg Eden, signed from I think he was playing reserve grade in Australia.
Yeah.
Comes and scores 40 tries. A lot of that has to come down to coaching, because it just seems the amount of players that come through these different avenues. And it looks like we're doing the same again. We've signed a lot of Championship players again this season, but people seem to be worried. I'm not in the slightest, because we've done it for 3 years, and I'm yet to see one of these players not perform better than I'd expect. Paul McShane has gone from being at Wakefield and being put it this way, we swapped Scott Moore for Paul McShane, and I was thinking, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure that's the best call. 2 years later, Paul McShane's one of the best hookers, probably the top 3 hooker in Super League. A lot of that has to come down to coach. It's not necessarily just Darryl Powell, there's Danny Orr and Ryan Sheridan in there, the whole coaching staff, but for me, the work Powell's done to turn Castleford into a club which people now genuinely fear and they don't want to play them, that's something in itself, and I think I can't really argue against him being coached here.
Yeah, the management, it's been put in across a number of years, more with Powell, I think.
Yeah, I'll concede that. Yeah.
It's been more of a journey, year on year. Castleford have been building. People have seen it coming. They've always had that. Or the last couple of years, they've had that style of play. I'd still probably make the case for Chester, specifically for last year. But obviously, you can't really rule out Powell and Castleford's season.
I think the proof will be in the pudding for Chester if they can crack on next year.
Yeah.
We'll see how Wakefield do next year. If they can play in the same kind of vein, they've made a couple of decent signings by those things, and then we'll say, then Wakefield are going to be a force, and I hope they are. I really hope they are. They've had so much, as much as there's a rivalry between our clubs. I think Wakefield, the amount of kind of adversity they've had to face with the ground and all that kind of stuff, it's been nothing but negative. But yet they've been playing well on the field.
On the pitch, it's all positive.
Exactly. So if they can strive for that, they're a club that deserve to do well. They've got some great fans over there, so. Yeah, I do hope Wakefield do pretty well this year.
Yeah, and I think I'll let you lead on to the next category, because I think you'll have the most to say about this one. It's the Club of the Year. Take it away. We'll give you 5 minutes to talk about Castleford. Go on.
What I said to you, are we just doing Super League?
Super League, NRL, if you want, chuck it in there.
I'll throw an honourable mention, because the Club of the Year worldwide is 100% Melbourne Storm. I think we'll just have to throw that in there. They are absolutely unbelievable. You know a lot more about NRL than me, but the NRL premiers this year, Melbourne Storm, with the final year with the big 3 over there. They deserve a massive honourable mention, to be honest. They are probably World Club of the Year, I would say. You can argue that. You've got the Dally M winner, premiers. And then they've created much of the Queensland side as well. They've gone on to win State of Origin, and then the Australians have won the World Cup. So we'll speak about Melbourne, but in terms of Super League, it's my boys, isn't it? It's got to be Castleford. It's got to be Castleford this year.
You touched on the NRL there. I think if we're looking at a club of the year there, I think North Queensland Cowboys might pop up. Not necessarily, they didn't achieve that much. They got to the final without Jonathan Thurston, without Matt Scott. You know, many people written them off mid-season when Thurston was gone. Yeah. And Michael Morgan grew into his own. Tamari Martin come in and played a role. I think when they got to the final, a lot of it was made up for Melbourne to win, and they went out and did it because they're the best executors in the world. Yeah. But I think in terms of a story and a club story, I think Cowboys could be up there. I think the Roosters finished second in the league, I believe, last year when many people written them off. I think they've got a very young side now, but as you mentioned, you know, it's similar vein to Australia. Melbourne are the team, and a lot of that is down to the big three. They are the best players in the league, and I think I'll say it on a limb here. I think you could put them in any side, and it instantly makes them better. I'm not saying it makes them a world beater, but you put them in, and you're not gonna bet against them them three. Sorry, I think in terms of Castleford, I think they probably would be the club of the year in Super League for me. I think you can't really argue against it. You watch them play sometimes, and it was just absolutely unreal for me. We'll move on finally to Player of the Year. Luke Gale won the Man of Steel, obviously. Steve Prescott Man of Steel. There wasn't too much competition in the end. As you mentioned, Zach Hardacre, I think if his ban didn't come into place, I think he would be up there for a shout. Whether he'd have won it, I don't know. Albert Kelly at Hull had a spectacular first season there. I think they're the big contenders for you, but I imagine Luke Gale's name is firmly engraved on that award for you. I
think it's hard to take it away from him, what he's managed this year, to be honest. You know, he won obviously the Man of Steel award, which is massive, and I'm sure that probably means the most for him being player voted as well. But he's won the Albert Goldthorpe award as well. He's won it for, I believe it's 3 times in a row now, which is just ridiculous because obviously that's voted from the journalists as well. So it's he won the Writers Award. You know, he's pretty much swept the board this year, and I don't think that many people can be wrong, to be honest, the way he's performed this year. A lot of it is due to the 12 players around. Don't get me wrong, it's not just all him. You know, you take Luke Gale out of that team, Castle would have still won a lot of games this year, I believe. But it's just that added edge which he gives, which just gets you over the line. The semi-finals you mentioned, you know, who else? Not necessarily the drop goal, but who else holds their nerve for the conversion? The penalty, should I say? As you know, the hooter sounds. You know, that's probably the most difficult kick you can ever imagine kicking. You know what I mean? So it's just that kind of mentality that he brought to the Tigers this year. Just an outstanding player. I think in terms of my top 5, in terms of players that could have had a chance this year, you're talking Gale, Hardacre, Kelly. I think on the fringe as well, Parcells, who I already mentioned.
Yeah, I was going to mention him. Yeah.
Honourable mention as well. I think he did wasn't so good towards the back end of the year, but Ben Murdoch-Masila as well. Was very good for Salford throughout, and then had a very good World Cup as well, should be mentioned. So I think he's going to be a great signing for Warrington next year if he can get in good shape and crack on. But for me, Player of the Year, it's Luke Gale. It's easy. Yeah, he's got, as you said, he clean sweeped all the awards. He's got his most prestigious one now. Our 100%. Word of giving him the Player of the Year. Yep. But I think, as you said, the penalty, the drop goal, I think over the last 2 or 3 years, he's really come into his own. And let's not forget he had appendix surgery 3 weeks before that. Yeah. It's just a lot of people have not mentioned that recently, and like it was just kind of news for like a couple of weeks, wasn't it? But that is crazy. Absolutely when the news comes that he might be missing, I know a lot was made of it then, and a lot of people said that's it, Castleford are done. And I think that's what makes a Player of the Year. If people say strive from that adversity and come back. I think to have that negative and then turn it into a positive. I believe a week after he did it, he lifted up his shirt to have a message. I think was it Man's Not Hot? It was Man's Not Hot. Surgery band. So I think to the bemusement of everyone, the Sky Sports commentary box who didn't have a clue what he meant. I think that just, I think it sums him up as a person. You know, he's played with a smile on his face this year, and
that's what the game's about, and
Yep.
I don't think there's a player that deserves the accolade more than him.
Yep.
That'll wrap us up for today, and unfortunately, that'll also wrap us up for the year.
Yep.
Thank you for joining me in recent weeks and today, Ross. It's
Pleasure's
been a pleasure.
mine.
We'll be back in mid-January for our build-up to the Super League season. We'll be joined with guests from a few clubs with hands-on experience, so that'll be something to look forward to.
Yep, look forward to that.
Check our Twitter for updates of when we are back. That's at the Rugby League Hub. Check our website for updates throughout the season at www.rugbyleaguehub.com, and leave a like, comment and subscribe. Any feedback down below is more than welcome. So that is us signing off for the year. We'll see you in January.